You're standing at a crossroads right now. Maybe it's financial devastation that's brought you here. Perhaps it's a relationship that's fallen apart in ways you never thought possible. It could be health challenges that have stripped away your sense of normalcy, or professional failures that have shaken your confidence to its core. Whatever brought you to this moment, there's a weight pressing down on your chest, and somewhere deep inside you're asking yourself, how do I move forward from here? How do I survive this? I want you to know something before we go any further. That question you're asking yourself, it's not a sign of weakness. It's actually a sign that you're awake to your circumstances. And that awareness is the first step toward transformation. But here's what I need you to understand in this very moment. The impossibility you're feeling right now is not your final destination. It's a waypoint. It's a moment in time that feels eternal, but it's not. And more importantly, you are not alone in this journey. When we talk about impossible situations, we're talking about moments when human effort, human resources, and human wisdom seem utterly insufficient. We've exhausted our contacts. We've spent our savings. We've prayed to people we thought could help, and they've turned us away or let us down. We've tried everything we know how to try, and nothing has worked. That's the kind of impossible we're discussing here. And in those moments, there's actually something beautiful waiting to happen if we understand how to access it. The foundation of everything I want to share with you is this. You are connected to something infinitely greater than your circumstances. You are connected to the one who created the universe, who sustains every atom, who holds every moment in his hands. And this connection is not something you need to earn or prove worthy of. It's already there. It's been there since before you were born. The question isn't whether this connection exists. The question is whether you're going to tap into it. Look at the human condition for a moment. We are creatures of limitation. We have limited resources, limited strength, limited knowledge, and limited time. Our limitations are not bugs in our design. They're features. They exist for a profound reason. Because when we hit those limits, when we come to the end of ourselves, we finally become available to access something beyond ourselves. This is not a punishment. This is an invitation. Think about the moments in your life when you've grown the most. I'm not talking about the comfortable moment. I'm talking about the moments that terrified you, the moments that broke you open, the moments when you had no choice but to let go of your pride and ask for help. Those moments are sacred. Those moments are where real transformation happens. And if you're in one of those moments right now, you're actually standing in a place of tremendous potential. Here's something that changes everything. Allah, the creator, the sustainer, the one with infinite power and wisdom. He doesn't look at your bank account to decide whether to help you. He doesn't examine your credentials to decide whether you're worthy. He doesn't check whether you've been perfect before he extends his mercy. He looks at your heart. He sees your sincerity. He witnesses your struggle. And when you finally reach the point where you acknowledge your absolute need for him, you've actually positioned yourself perfectly to receive his help. The word impossible itself is interesting. It means not possible. But for whom is it not possible? It's not possible for us with our human limitations. But is it possible for Allah? Is anything difficult for the one who created existence itself from nothing? Is anything challenging for the one who commanded, be, and it was? When you reframe your impossibility in the context of Allah's infinite power, suddenly the equation changes entirely. I want to talk about something I've observed across decades of working with people from every walk of life, every economic background, every level of education, every culture and region. The people who survive the impossible and emerge stronger aren't the ones with the most resources. They're not the ones with the strongest credentials. They're not the ones who had the easiest path. The people who transform their impossibilities into opportunities are the ones who make a specific choice. They choose to surrender. They choose to trust. They choose to believe that there is a way forward, even when they can't see it yet. This kind of surrender is not defeat. This is the most powerful form of empowerment available to you, because when you stop trying to solve everything by yourself, when you stop pretending you have all the answers, when you finally admit that you need help, that's when you open yourself to receiving help from a source that can actually solve your problems. This is not weakness. This is wisdom. Let me be direct about something. The world will tell you that your circumstances define your destiny. The world will tell you that if you failed, you are a failure. The world will tell you that if you've been rejected, you're unworthy of acceptance. The world will tell you that your past mistakes guarantee your future suffering. These are lies. These are the whispers of a system that profits from your hopelessness, that benefits from your despair. But there is a voice that speaks a different truth, and that voice is calling to you right now. That voice says, I am close to you, closer than you know, closer than your own jugular vein. That voice says, call upon me, and I will respond to you. That voice says, do not despair of my mercy, for I am merciful to those who turn to me. This is not poetry. This is not wishful thinking. This is a promise, and a promise from the Creator of all things carries a weight and a reality that supersedes anything your circumstances seem to suggest. When you're in the space of impossibility, your mind is usually flooded with worst-case scenarios. You're visualizing failure. You're imagining rejection. You're picturing endings and losses. This is your mind trying to protect you through prediction. But here's what needs to happen. You need to interrupt that pattern. You need to introduce a different narrative. You need to start imagining the possibility that there is a way forward, even if you can't see it yet. I'm not talking about toxic positivity here. I'm not telling you to pretend that your situation isn't serious or that your challenges aren't real. What I'm telling you is that in addition to acknowledging your reality, you also need to acknowledge a greater reality, the reality of divine power and mercy that operates beyond what we can see or predict. You can acknowledge both things simultaneously. Your situation is difficult, and there is a power that can transform it. Your challenges are real, and there is mercy available to you. One of the most transformative practices you can engage in during impossible times is the practice of remembrance. This isn't about reciting religious phrases mechanically. This is about genuinely connecting with the truth that you are known, you are seen, and you are cared for by the one who governs all of existence. When you pause in the middle of your crisis and remember this truth, really remember it, feel it, let it sink into your consciousness, it changes your neurology, it changes your emotional state, it changes what becomes possible for you. The practice of remembrance is also deeply practical, because remembering who you're dealing with fundamentally alters what you believe is possible. If you're facing an impossible situation and you remember that you have access to infinite power through your connection to Allah, suddenly the situation doesn't look quite so impossible anymore. It looks like a test, yes. It looks like a challenge, absolutely. But it no longer looks like a dead end. It looks like a threshold. Now, I need to address something important. Waiting for divine intervention doesn't mean you sit passively and do nothing. This is a critical misunderstanding that holds many people back. When I talk about trusting Allah to make a way, I'm talking about combining complete trust with complete effort on your part. You do your part. You do it with integrity. You do it with consistency. You do it with intelligence. And you do it with the knowledge that the outcome is not ultimately in your hands. It's in the hands of the one who controls all outcomes. This combination is powerful because it frees you from the paralysis of needing to guarantee success yourself. You don't have that power anyway. But what you do have power over is your effort, your intention, and your integrity. When you fully commit to doing what's within your control and completely trust what's beyond your control, you've unlocked a state of being that is both grounded and transcendent. Think about the practical implications of this. Right now, you might be afraid to take action because you're not guaranteed success. You might be hesitant to try because you've tried before and failed. You might be afraid to risk because you don't know if it will work out. But when you understand that your job is to try sincerely and that the outcome is Allah's responsibility, suddenly you're free to act. You're free to move. You're free to attempt things that you couldn't attempt before because the pressure of needing to guarantee success is no longer crushing you. I want to tell you about the psychology of impossible situations. When we're in crisis, our thinking becomes very narrow. We're in survival mode. We can only see obstacles. We can only see reasons why things won't work. This is actually a protective mechanism that served our ancestors well when they were facing physical threats. But in the modern world, this survival mode thinking often becomes our biggest obstacle. It locks us into a perspective that can't see solutions. The way out of this narrowed perspective is through a deliberate expansion of your thinking. You need to consciously remind yourself, there might be a way forward that I haven't thought of yet. There might be a solution that doesn't match what I think a solution should look like. There might be help coming from a direction I didn't expect. This kind of open, curious thinking creates the mental space for insights and ideas to emerge, and often these insights come when you're not forcing them. They come when you're in a state of calm surrender combined with attentive hope. Prayer during impossible times isn't about giving Allah a list of demands. It's not about trying to convince Him to help you. It's about positioning yourself mentally, emotionally, and spiritually in a place of receptivity. It's about creating an internal environment where guidance can reach you, where answers can touch your consciousness, where help can manifest in your life. When you pray, you're not trying to change Allah's mind. You're changing your own mind. You're aligning your will with a greater will. You're opening a channel that might otherwise be blocked by your own resistance and fear. The timing of divine help is often different from our timing. We want relief immediately. We want the answer yesterday. We want to see the solution right now. But divine wisdom operates on a different timeline. Sometimes the delay is part of the test. Sometimes the waiting period is where the real growth happens. Sometimes you need to be tested in a certain way so that when the help comes, you're ready to receive it and use it properly. Trust the timeline of your transformation even when it's slower than you'd prefer. I want to address something that many people struggle with, the feeling of abandonment. You've been waiting, you've been trying, you've been praying, and from your perspective, nothing is happening. The silence feels like absence. The delay feels like rejection. But here's what I need you to know. Allah has never abandoned anyone who turned to Him sincerely. But sometimes He uses the very experience of waiting, of longing, of searching to change us in the ways we most need to be changed. The people in history who achieved the most extraordinary transformations were rarely the ones who had it easy. They were the ones who went through difficulty. They were tested, they were broken down, and in that brokenness something new was formed, something stronger, something purer. This is not punishment. This is mercy in a form that sometimes doesn't look like mercy from the inside. But when you look back on your life years later, you'll see how every impossible moment was actually reshaping you, refining you, preparing you. Let me talk about the power of perspective. In your current situation, you might be focused entirely on what you've lost, what you're lacking, what's gone wrong. This is understandable. But I'm asking you to practice something alongside that acknowledgement. Also look for what remains. Look for what's still intact. Look for what's still possible. Maybe your health is challenged, but your mind is clear. Maybe your finances are devastated, but you still have people who love you. Maybe your career path has collapsed, but your knowledge and experience remain. When you start counting what's left instead of counting what's lost, you start seeing possibilities that were always there but invisible to you. The concept of trust in impossible times is misunderstood by many. People think it means feeling confident that everything will turn out exactly as you hope. That's not trust, that's just optimistic thinking. Real trust is different. Real trust is saying, I don't know how this will turn out. The outcome might not be what I'm envisioning, but I trust that whatever happens, it will be part of a larger plan, and I will be able to handle it. This kind of trust is available to you right now, no matter what you're facing. When you operate from this kind of trust, something remarkable happens internally. Your anxiety doesn't disappear, but it changes character. It becomes less about fear of a particular outcome and more about the kind of nervous anticipation you feel before something significant is about to happen. This shift is profound because it changes your behavior. Instead of being paralyzed by fear, you become energized by possibility. Instead of running from your situation, you turn to face it with curiosity and courage. I want to speak directly to the part of you that's been disappointed. Maybe you've been let down by people you trusted. Maybe you've made mistakes that seem to close doors permanently. Maybe you've experienced losses that felt unbearable. These experiences are real and they've shaped you, but they don't have to define your future. The beauty of connecting with something beyond human limitation is that it operates outside the framework of human disappointment. Divine mercy doesn't run out. Divine compassion isn't conditional on your worthiness. Divine help doesn't require you to have a perfect track record. There's a quality that becomes available to you when you've truly reached the end of yourself. It's humility. And humility is not weakness. It's the strongest position you can be in because it's the most honest position. When you stop pretending, when you stop trying to be more than you are, when you finally admit what you actually need, you open yourself to receiving what's actually available to you. This is the secret that transforms impossible situations. Now, I want to talk about something that might seem counterintuitive: gratitude in the midst of crisis. When everything is falling apart, gratitude can seem like it's missing the point. But gratitude isn't about denying that things are difficult. Gratitude is about training your mind to see beyond the difficulty, to recognize blessings that exist even in the midst of challenges. When you practice gratitude, even for small things, even for things that might seem insignificant, you're creating a mental environment where possibility becomes visible again. Gratitude also changes your relationship with what you've been given. When you appreciate what you have, you're less consumed by what you don't have. This shift in focus is tremendously powerful. It's not about toxic positivity or forcing yourself to be happy about your situation. It's about acknowledging that even in difficulty, there are things worth recognizing, things worth appreciating. And this recognition changes your internal state in ways that affect every decision you make moving forward. The impossible situation you're in right now is not a reflection of your value. Let me say that again. Your circumstances are not a measure of your worth. You might be facing financial ruin, but that doesn't mean you're a failure as a person. You might be experiencing professional rejection, but that doesn't mean you lack ability or intelligence. You might be dealing with health challenges, but that doesn't mean your body is your enemy. These are situations, not verdicts on who you are. This is crucial because when we conflate our circumstances with our identity, we stop fighting. We accept the limitation as fundamental. But when you separate your circumstances from your identity, you reclaim your power. You become someone who is experiencing a difficulty, not someone who is fundamentally defined by that difficulty. And someone who is experiencing a difficulty can change the situation. But someone who believes they are fundamentally limited by their circumstances has already surrendered before the real battle has begun. I want to talk about community and connection. One of the cruelest lies that impossible times whisper to us is that we're alone. The loneliness is part of the test, but it's not the truth. There are people around you who have gone through similar difficulties. There are communities of believers who understand what struggle feels like. There are minds and hearts willing to help if you're willing to. Reaching out is not weakness. It's not failure. It's not a sign that you should have been stronger. Reaching out is a recognition of your humanity, and your humanity is your strength. The way forward often involves taking small steps. We get caught in thinking about the whole journey and how impossible it seems. But what if you only focused on the next right action? What if you asked yourself, what's the one thing I can do today that moves me in the right direction? Not the big solution, not the perfect, just the next right step. And then tomorrow you ask the same question again. When you break the impossible into a series of small manageable actions, the impossible becomes possible. There's also wisdom in knowing when to push and when to rest. During crisis, there's a tendency to become relentless, to push harder and harder, hoping that sheer force of will can overcome your situation. But sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is rest. Rest is not giving up. Rest is not accepting defeat. Rest is recognizing that you're human, that your energy is finite, and that sometimes you need to restore yourself so that you can move forward with clarity and strength. Permission to rest during your crisis is permission to survive it. I want to address the fear that often accompanies impossible situations. Fear is not your enemy. Fear is trying to protect you, but fear can also lock you in place. The way forward isn't to eliminate fear, it's to feel it and move anyway. It's to acknowledge that you're scared and choose action despite the fear. This is courage. This is what separates people who transform their impossible situations from people who remain trapped in them. Courage isn't the absence of fear. Courage is the presence of something bigger than your fear. That something bigger is faith. And I'm not talking about blind faith. I'm talking about faith that's rooted in understanding. Faith that's based on the evidence of how things have worked before. Faith that comes from recognizing patterns in your own life and in the lives of others who have come through difficulty. When you've experienced Allah's help even once, truly felt it and witnessed it, something shifts in you. You know it's possible. That knowing becomes the foundation for faith in the next crisis. The stories of people who have come through the impossible are not stories of exceptional people who had special powers. They're stories of ordinary people who made specific choices. They chose to keep moving. They chose to believe. They chose to trust. They chose to serve others even in their own difficulty. They chose to maintain integrity even when nobody was watching. These choices are available to you right now, in this moment, in your situation. As we move toward the conclusion of these reflections, I want to emphasize something. Your present situation is not your final destination. What you're experiencing now is a chapter in your story, not the entire story. You don't know yet what this chapter is preparing you for. You don't know what capability you're developing, what character you're building, what strength you're gaining through this struggle. But I promise you, if you move through this with integrity and faith, you will look back and understand. You will see how this impossible moment was actually a turning point. The way forward begins with a decision. It begins with you deciding that despite how impossible things look, despite how defeated you feel, despite how uncertain everything seems, you're going to choose trust. You're going to choose action. You're going to choose faith, not because you're ignoring your reality, but because you're acknowledging a reality greater than your immediate circumstances. This decision will be tested. There will be moments when doubt creeps. There will be days when the progress seems non-existent. There will be times when you'll wonder if you're fooling yourself. These moments are part of the process. They're not signs that you're on the wrong path. They're signs that you're being asked to go deeper into your faith, to hold on tighter to what you know is true, to strengthen your conviction. The way forward also requires that you take care of yourself. Your mind, your body, your spirit, they all need nourishment during crisis. This isn't selfish. This is maintaining the vessel through which transformation happens. When you're depleted, you can't serve. When you're broken down, you can't rise. Take care of yourself with the same attention you'd give to something precious, because you are precious. Finally, remember this. The one who has brought you through every difficulty up until this moment is the same one who will bring you through this one. You've survived 100% of the difficult days in your life so far. You've made it through every impossible moment you've faced, and you made it through them because there was help available to you even when you couldn't see it. That same help is available to you now. When life feels impossible, Allah will make a way, but He's not going to do it by magically removing you from your situation. He's going to do it by transforming you while you're in the situation, and then showing you doors that you couldn't see before, paths that you couldn't have imagined, solutions that you couldn't have conceived. And when the way finally becomes visible, when the door finally opens, when the help finally arrives, you'll understand that it was worth the wait. You'll understand that every moment of struggle was part of your becoming. This is your moment, not tomorrow, not when circumstances not when you feel more ready. Now, right now, in this impossible situation, you have the opportunity to access a reality beyond what you can see. You have the chance to experience a mercy that operates outside your understanding. You have the ability to trust in something greater than your